Today, we're jumping into a real ancient legal detective story. Seriously, it's this mystery that's been hiding in plain sight, tucked away in what looks like a super simple rule. It's a debate that had scholars arguing for generations, all trying to get to the bottom of one big question.
I mean, think about it for a second in our world. Who signs off on our food? Who do we actually trust to get it right? This feeling, this anxiety we have today, is pretty much the same thing at the heart of this ancient puzzle. It's all about trust, competence, and who's watching. Okay, let's get into it.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start by finding this little contradiction in the original legal code. Then we'll follow the trail of these brilliant minds who debated it, each one with their own unique take. We'll get into what they were really thinking, their hidden assumptions, and finally, see what this whole ancient argument can teach us right now.
So, every good investigation needs a starting point, a crime scene, if you will. Ours begins inside a foundational legal text called the Mishnah. This is where the whole mystery kicks off.
Now, when you first read this, it seems pretty clear, right? It starts with this huge, open permission. Everyone slaughters. And then it just lists a few specific exceptions. Seems easy enough. But it's not. The problem, the real puzzle, is baked right into the wording.
So look at these two phrases side by side. Everyone slaughters, that sounds like a green light from the get-go, right? It's like you have permission before you even start. But then you get this other phrase, their slaughter is valid. That sounds totally different. It sounds like someone's checking your work after you're already done. So, which one is it? Are you pre-approved or are you just hoping for a pass after the fact?
And this gets us to this really key legal idea. You have ab initio, which means from the beginning, and post facto, which means after the fact. The easiest way to think about it is like a building permit. Are you allowed to start building because you have that permit in your hand? That's ab initio. Or did you just go ahead and build something and now you're just really hoping the inspector shows up and says it's okay? That's post facto. This little contradiction right here is the engine for our entire investigation.
So let's bring in our first two master detectives, these two incredible scholars, Abaye and Rava. They look at this mess, this contradiction, and they come up with a theory about who the Mishnah is actually talking about.
Abaye's theory is that the rule is secretly about a Samaritan. And he says, yeah, a Samaritan can slaughter from the beginning, ab initio, but there's a huge catch. A Jew has to be standing right there, watching them constantly, like every single second. By adding this context, he thinks he's solved the puzzle.
Abaye's logic here is super practical. If someone is watching, everything's fine from the start. But, okay, what if no one was watching? Well, then the act isn't okay at first, but you can validate it after the fact. How? You offer the Samaritan a piece of the meat to eat. The idea is they're also super meticulous, so if they eat it, you can trust it was done right. It's a pretty clever workaround. But his colleague, Rava, he wasn't buying it. Rava comes back with this killer question that kind of pokes a hole in Abaye's whole theory. He brings up this completely different law, one about a Jew leaving a non-Jew alone in a store full of wine barrels. I mean, does the guy have to stare at the barrels all day long to make sure they're safe? Rava says, no way. For the wine, the law says that just having a Jew kind of exiting and entering, popping in and out, is enough of a deterrent. So he applies that same logic here. The supervision doesn't have to be constant. It can just be sporadic. And that implies a completely different level of risk and a different level of trust.
And just like that, the plot thickens. Now we bring in our next detective, Rav Ashi. He looks at all the same evidence and points his finger at a totally different suspect. He thinks Abaye and Rava have been looking in the wrong direction this whole time.
So Rav Ashi's theory is, forget the Samaritan. This rule is about a Jewish transgressor. We're talking about someone inside the community who's known for cutting corners, maybe eating non-kosher just because it's easier. And for this person, the issue isn't who's watching them, it's their equipment. Is their knife properly sharpened? Is it nicked? The big concern here is just plain old negligence.
And this is just brilliant, because it perfectly solves that ab initio versus post facto problem. See, if you check his knife beforehand and it's all good, then he has permission from the very start. But if you don't check, he goes ahead without permission, but you can still make it valid after the fact by checking the knife then. It's a completely different angle on the whole thing. So just when you think we've explored every possible lead, our final scholar, Ravina, steps up, and he basically reframes the entire debate. He says, hey, maybe this isn't about identity or supervision or knives at all. Maybe it's just about competence.
Ravina comes at this from a totally new direction. He says, look,
It's about whether you're qualified, and there are two ways to prove it. First, you could be the expert, the person with deep theoretical knowledge. You know, the one who can recite all the complicated laws. They're good to go. Or you could be the established, the person who's proven they have the practical skill, a steady hand that comes from tons of experience. They're also qualified. This completely shifts the debate from who are you to what can you actually do?
Okay, so we've got 4 brilliant scholars, and they all have wildly different solutions to the very same puzzle. How is that possible? Why couldn't they just agree? Well, it's because they weren't just debating a rule. They were really debating human nature.
This is really the heart of it all. Abaye operates from a place of high distrust. A mistake can happen in a split second, so you need to be watching constantly. Rava has a more moderate view on trust. He thinks just the possibility of being checked is enough to keep someone honest. Rav Ashi is working on a totally different axis. He basically assumes Samaritans can't be trusted, so the problem must be about carelessness inside the community. And then Ravina just sweeps all that away and says, look, the only thing that should matter is competence, whether it's proven by knowledge or by practice. And when you see all these different perspectives laid out, you start to realize something really profound. Maybe finding the one right answer was never really the point of the exercise.
You see, the real goal here was to put an idea through a rigorous stress test. It was about taking one simple statement and turning it over and over and over, looking at it from every conceivable angle and exploring every logical path and human assumption that branched off from it.
I mean, think about it for a second. We just walked through 4 major, distinct, and really complex theories, all designed to explain one short little line of text. And these are just the big ones we had time for. It just shows you this incredible dedication to being intellectually thorough.
So what's the big takeaway here? Well, first, the simple rules can hide amazing complexity. Second, that when we argue about laws, a lot of the time we're actually arguing about our deepest beliefs about people and trust. It teaches us that understanding why someone thinks what they think is just as important as what they think. And maybe most importantly, it shows that sometimes the real value is in the rigorous process of the argument itself.
And that kind of leaves us with a final question to chew on. In our own lives, at work, in our society, how often do we get so focused on finding the final answer that we completely miss the immense value of just truly understanding the argument?